Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is May 15th, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1920, 1950s Mid-American NWA champion Frank Hewitt. 1957, the voice of the Von Erich family, Kevin Von Erich. 1958, damn, it's Ron Simmons. 1981, TNA Wrestling's Cody Deaner. 1983, MLW's Tom Lawler. And last but not least, 1995, the luchador known as Dragon Lee. And we're going to keep that positivity train a-rolling. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for May 15th. Jumping in our Wayback Machine and going all the way to 1953, where we see Frankie Talabar win his 9th Midwest Wrestling Association World Junior Heavyweight title in Columbus, Ohio, defeating Joe Scarapello in a tournament final. 2 years later in 1955, George Doucet and Luther Lindsay defeat Bulldog Curtis and Tommy Martinez to win the NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team titles. Jumping 2 more years to 1957, Ed Francis defeats Luigi Marcina for the Pacific Coast Junior Heavyweight title, ending Marcina's second reign. Our last stop in the 50s, 1958, Vern Gagne and Leo Nominelli defeat Doc and Mike Gallagher for the Minneapolis NWA World Tag Team titles in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Grooving into the 60s, 1963, Rocket Monroe defeats Joe Scarpa, aka Jay Strongbow, and Pancho Villa in a 3-way match to win the NWA Gulf Coast Heavyweight title. Just 1 year later, in 1964, Worldwide Wrestling Federation World Champion Bruno Sammartino fought European champion Hans Mortimer to a no contest at 20 minutes and 4 seconds when both men failed to get to their feet after a collision in the ring. In 1965, we see Mighty Igor defeat Mad Dog Vachon for the AWA World Heavyweight title in Omaha, Nebraska, ending Vachon's second reign. Grabbing our best polyester suits and making 2 stops in 1970, Mark Lewin and Antonio Puglisi defeat Swede Hansen and Rip Hawk to win the International Wrestling Alliance World Tag Team titles in Sydney, Australia. Our second stop in 1970, we see Donna Cristanello and Kathy O'Day defeat the Fabulous Moolah and Tony Rose to win the NWA World's Tag Team titles. The next year in 1971, Red Bastion and Hercules Cortez defeat Butcher and Mad Dog Vachon to win the AWA World Tag Team titles in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, ending Vachon's second reign. 1975, Paul Jones and Wahoo McDaniel defeat Gene and Ole Anderson to win the NWA World Tag Team titles in Greensboro, North Carolina. Making 2 stops in 1976, first we see the Sheik defeat Bobo Brazil for the Detroit NWA United States Heavyweight title in Detroit, Michigan. Our second stop in 76 sees Tony Guerrera and Pat Patterson defeat Invader One and Don Morocco to win the San Francisco NWA World Tag Team titles in San Francisco, California. Grabbing our boom boxes and going to the 80s, 1983, Roddy Piper and Terry Funk face off for the first time ever in Toronto, Ontario at the Maple Leaf Gardens, with Piper winning by countout at 11 minutes and 14 seconds. 1984, New Japan Pro Wrestling and the WWF run a joint show in Japan with a dual main event. First, WWF champion Hulk Hogan defeated Riki Choshu via countout, and in the main event, Antonio Inoki defeated Big John Studd. Skipping ahead 2 years to 1986, the Midnight Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, defeat the Batten twins, Bart and Brad, to win the NWA Central States Tag Team titles. 1987, the WWF debuted at the Houston Coliseum for the first time ever. The venue was a longtime stronghold of promoter Paul Bosch, who did commentary for the event. Ted DiBiase, who had just signed for the $1 Million Man role, made his first appearance in 7 years for the WWF here, cutting an in-ring promo announcing he was now part of the company. Grabbing our flannels and going to the decade of grunge, 1993, the Rock and Roll Express, Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton, defeat the Heavenly Bodies, Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard, in Johnson City, Tennessee, for the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team titles. This began the Express's 4th reign and ended the Bodies' 5th. And last but not least, 1999, the franchise Shane Douglas ends his association with Extreme Championship Wrestling over money. Those were your short but sweet pro wrestling history highlights for May 15th. I'm the Eclectic Gentleman, Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.